Can you not sit higher than me? I'm taller than he is.
Okay, everyone knows that I'm 6'7".
Oh my god, that is so ironic that you're wearing a security shirt and we've talked about insecurity this whole time. I brought Dan on because he is a good devil's advocator, and also because I know his stance on this. We're gonna talk about non-monogamy.
Okay.
Yeah, so recently I was shown a series of videos from a friend, and it articulates the concept of non-monogamy in a very, very good way. A very easy to understand and digest way, and they also bring up a lot of points that I always seem to have a hard time bringing up when talking about this topic. So yeah, basically, let's just get into it, and let me phrase the question first. The question the interviewer asks, are humans naturally non-monogamous?
Well, I personally wouldn't say that all humans aren't monogamous, but I do think that more humans have the capacity or desire to be non-monogamous than they would like to admit. But obviously, because monogamy is the standard for society, and like your previous guest said, it's put on a pedestal, and alternatives like lifestyles, swinging and polyamory and open relationships are so demonized that a lot of people don't feel that they can express their true desires. And so a lot of them resort to being either in miserable monogamous relationships or they resort to cheating. And I honestly, obviously that's not great in either situation. And basically, I started my platform to offer an ethical alternative to say that, we can preserve things like kind of commitment, trust, communication, honesty, all these important values in relationships, but also be honest with each other that monogamy might not be the only way to achieve those things. So I'm encouraging people to have open and honest conversations with their partners about their desires.
It sounds like she's saying society is not as open to non-monogamous relationships as it probably should be, and that it is a viable option.
Maybe should isn't the right word. Maybe should isn't the word I would use, but I immediately when she talks about I think people's desire and curiosity towards non-monogamy is greater than they would like to admit, which I personally do agree with, because we see a lot of cheating going on, and cheating is almost to an extent normalized. It's like I've talked to many different people, and and while I don't shame, I guess I try not to be shameful towards things, because people are in different places of their lives at different times, right? And people do things out of trauma or past experiences or whatever it is, right? But we are pretty boxed in as a society that this is the only method of how things should work. And I think she does a good job at kind of articulating that exists and that desire is there. And because if you're cheating is a form of non-monogamy, but it is not ethical. It is not honest. It's not ethical, right? You're lying to your partner.
Yeah, you're hurting someone. You're being a piece of shit.
Right.
I think so.
Exactly. And not only are you lying to your partner, but you're putting their health and safety at risk by doing so. Yeah. Which is to
a lot of ways your own as well.
Yeah, well, but I mean, that might even be the more fucked up part. The fact that you're putting someone else in literal physical harm's way, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then people are going to have emotional trauma and emotional pain associated with that.
Well, I think the desire to have more than one partner isn't the same thing as the desire of a non-monogamous relationship. I think one of the things that makes someone sometimes want to cheat is the taboo and the I can't have side of things, which is you want to reach outside of the boundaries that you agreed to put yourself in, because that is almost the grass on the other side of the fence. And I'm not saying that they can't be one can't be influenced on the other, but I wouldn't say, because I have in a past relationship been cheated on, and I have also cheated on someone else, someone who I really, really cared about, and it was very, very damaging to both of us in both situations, whether it was them who cheated or whether it was me who cheated. But I've never wanted to be in a non-monogamous relationship. I've always not necessarily put monogamy up on a pedestal, as much as for me that is just what works. It is very difficult for someone like me, I would say, to be that open to because when you're in a relationship, you have to be very, very open, and to really let someone in like that is very difficult for me. In fact, I'd say 99% of the people that are in my life have not been let in to any real capacity, including people that I have dated before. So to add in more than one person into that in my life at one time sounds like it'd be very, very difficult in the way that I look at a relationship. Because we might have different definitions of what we consider a relationship.
Right. So I understand what you're saying. So first I want to define, like, I want to try to give a little blanket statement, or not a blanket, or like an umbrella statement of what non-monogamy is, right? So like, non-monogamy doesn't necessarily mean polyamory and vice versa, right? So like,
people confuse that a lot.
Right. So like, basically, if you're single and you're sleeping around casually, that's a form of non-monogamy, right? But there are taboos associated with discussion around being with multiple partners, because we have shaming, and you know, especially with men love to talk about how women are like ran through. Like, men do this all the fucking time. Men are like peak shamers, right? Which is like, it's fucked up, because it's like, okay, you're allowed to, but a woman can't. Why is that? What, like, why, yeah. Right? And then the discussion comes up about like, okay, well, I don't want to be with a woman that has been ran through, or that is a slut, because like, they're not like wife material. But you're husband material if you do that. Like, it's fucking like the biggest.
Well, I think it's built on the foundation of trying to conquer, and if
it's built on a
foundation
conquered, it's built on a foundation of, it's patriarchal. 100%.
Obviously,
fragile masculinity and patriarchy. She talks about achieving things like commitment, trust, communication, and honesty. And a lot of, like, when people think about commitment, when they think about trust, and they think about honesty, they think about those things. I think most people perceive those things as only being able to be attained in a monogamous, exclusive relationship, which I don't believe that is the case.
Well, no, you can have multiple partners. Like, let's say you're in a polyamorous relationship, right? And you have more than one partner. If you're being honest with
let's be specific. More than one serious partner.
Yeah,
right?
like more than one actual. Yeah, like serious
partner. Yeah.
And that's a different question for probably later in the video. But anywho, you can be honest with all of them. You can be like, hey, I'm going to go with blah, blah, blah. I think when you're in that situation of a polyamorous relationship where you're keeping things from certain partners and not other partners, and you're not keeping it an open relationship as a whole, I think that's where things can get a little convoluted and difficult.
That's not honest. That's not transparent.
Exactly. But you can do those things in a relationship. Right. You can have a completely open and honest relationship.
Right.
With multiple partners, for sure.
100% agree. I think, so because I've watched these, so she's going to address the commitment thing in the later videos, but I want to bring it up real quick. So our idea of commitment as like a culture, I think, is flawed, because when people hear the word commitment, they hear like, okay, only with one person, only intimacy with one person.
Well, yeah, I think that's a part of the commitment.
They think, well, or just that's what commitment means. And she talks about later on how commitment is like, you know, just kind of committing your time and energy to someone.
You know what
like,
it is?
Like when you're with them, you commit your time and energy to them, and not just kind of, you know, like oh, someone else texted me, so I'm gonna leave and hang out with them because this might be the better option or something. Like, that's fucking, you're just.
To put that into like real perspective, think about the amount of relationships, because I think the more important of the two things is obviously like committing your time, your energy, putting the other person first when they need to be first, supporting them. Think about how many relationships did not end when that was going on in the relationship. Like, they stayed together even though one person was being a complete piece of shit, or the other person being a complete piece of shit. And then think of how many relationships where someone just cheats and that's it. Like, immediately, like, they put the faithfulness as far as the sexuality side of the relationship way up here of like, if you cross this line, don't get me wrong, I take that very serious too. If I'm cheated on, that is a whole big thing. But it is funny how the more important thing is actually like supporting your partner. But if they cross the sexual line, that's it, they're out.
Like, the thing that's so fucked up about cheating is the fact that you're dishonest about it, right?
Yeah.
And therefore putting your partner in maybe physical pain and emotional pain, right?
Yeah.
So being dishonest in any form is like, I wouldn't necessarily call it cheating, but it's fucked up. So we should be raising the bar of being dishonest closer to the level of like physical cheating, I think. I'm not talking about like white lies. Like,
no, I know.
Like, oh my God, you look great in that dress, when like, if you don't really think someone does, like, that's fucking petty. That doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I think that's more along lines of maybe not bringing it up to this bar, because each lie and part of dishonesty is on different levels all over the place. That is a spectrum, right?
It is, but I just mean lying in general, like just being dishonest in general is like sus. It's sketchy.
I think that the big issue with the cheating side of things is there's another person involved, and it's like a real stab to the stomach as far as like, I'm doing this thing with another person that I'm not telling you about, and it's like you and me are supposed to be like, one thing. We're supposed to be in this relationship.
Well,
because
you've both agreed to monogamy.
Exactly. Yeah. I see what you're saying, but I mean, and by no means is lying great in a relationship. 100% of the time, whether it's a small lie or a big lie, it is always terrible for a relationship. But it's just such a spectrum to me.
Some monogamous people are driven by insecurity.
I think a significant number of monogamous people are, not all, but I think some, are only monogamous out of insecurity. So, I don't know, in my time, I think I've spoken to a lot of monogamous people who desire the idea of multiple partners in theory, but then they have to deal with the flip side, which is that their partner will also be having multiple partners. And so I think a lot of people really struggle with the idea that they won't be their partner's one and only. And so they make the trade-off and agree to monogamy even when they actually desire something more. And so, they make the selfish decision to cheat so that they can get all the benefits of monogamy, but without having to deal with the responsibility and personal growth that's involved in, overcoming jealousy and insecurity, kind of building like a strong sense of self, kind of dealing with things like, fear of abandonment or a fear that you're not good enough and things like that. And so, basically I set up my platform to offer a viable alternative to monogamy that doesn't involve doing anything unethical like cheating.
Thoughts?
Let me think about it for a second. I don't know if I necessarily 100% agree with that. Well, I mean, obviously there's some, but she says,
I mean, she doesn't make any she doesn't make any what's the word I'm looking for? Not general, but like any hard statement in saying that like all people are like this, right?
Or a majority or whatever. There's definitely people who are in monogamous relationships because of insecurity. There's no denying that. Yeah. I don't know if it's a very significant number or not. That is. I don't know. I don't know anything about what her platform is, so I don't know.
I don't know anything about her platform either. I just like what she has said here, and I don't want to look into her platform anymore because I want to talk about the subject matter, because I think the subject matter of what she's talking about without knowing anything about her is great, and I don't want it to dilute the message that I'm hearing.
If like her platform's not something that you agree with, but her points
Which,
are.
I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be anything I wouldn't agree with. Like, everything she's saying is pretty on par with what I agree with. But I very much agree with everything she said. I think, I mean, personally, and I mean, I'm open to, like, receiving new information about this and changing my mind, but, like, I think the majority of people are monogamous outside of insecurity. I think the majority of people, if they... say therapy was free and trauma healing was free, and we could address all of and it was like super normal to address all of our insecurities and work through them as much as it is normal to like go to math class. I think that like most people would desire and be okay with having multiple partners. Because here's the thing, right? So why are relationships and the one area where we place like rules around it being like, okay, you're only allowed to have one partner, aka or like one best friend, right? But like we have I have multiple best friends, and I have multiple friends that I go skate with. I have multiple friends that like I go to jujitsu with, that I work out with, that I go to hardcore shows with. And I have all these different friends in all these different worlds, and like Dan doesn't like hardcore music, so I'm not gonna ask you to go to a hardcore show with me. So when it comes to relationships and sex, different people can offer people different things, and I don't see anything wrong with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the other person isn't inadequate, because like if the other person doesn't enjoy mini golfing, but like you have a friend over here who does enjoy mini golfing, like, oh, okay, hey, I'm gonna go enjoy some mini golfing with Sarah today, and then it's like, okay, that's fine. And because the other person doesn't want to mini golf anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think the reason that we have this mostly monogamous like history or whatever, like one, there's a big influence from religion, but two, I think maybe even a bigger influence is the idea that the person who you're with, you need to be committed to if you do reproduce, because I mean that was like the majority of our history, people trying to like create more people, right?
Yeah, but so take it back to hunter and gatherers. Hunter and gatherers were they communally raised children, and oftentimes the women would have have children with multiple men to not only grow the tribe but also like out of security, because back then like like the patriarchal system actually served, because like the men like fought and defended and hunted and like, you know what I mean? It was very like primal and animalistic. So like it actually served a purpose to be that way. I personally think that it's very much a religious and patriarchal thing and I mean, yo, we can argue in the comments if you disagree with me. That is totally fine. I'm 100% willing to be wrong about this. But I'm just saying, like, with how I feel about it, I feel like it's like fragile men and patriarchal and trying to like control women, like, and to tell them what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Because like,
what is that?
Open relationships and non-monogamy and all that stuff, like, because it's like historically, like, even like taking it back all the way through the 1900s, like it's so normal for like men to cheat and like not to tell their wives, and like maybe I'm having like a narrow perspective on it because I'm just a dude, so maybe I'm just like thinking about it that way. But it definitely, that is the stereotype. Like the stereotype is like men cheating and having multiple partners, and like women get slut shamed for like even thinking about it or even enjoying sex. You know what I mean? So I think it all goes back to that, and I think it all goes back to those insecurities. And when I say most, I'm not saying like 90%. I'm just saying like more than 50. I think more than 50% of people are monogamous out of insecurity, because they feel like, okay, well, if I can't give my partner this, like that means I'm inadequate. No, it doesn't. Why do we draw the line around intimacy, relationships, and like why is there this sense of like betrayal if you're intimate in a physical way with another person, but like I don't feel betrayed if you go and skate with Cody Smith, you know?
Oh, so you're saying like with your partner, why is sexuality held on such a high pedestal as opposed to them wanting to just hang out with their friends or hang out with a guy or hang out with a girl?
Right.
I imagine it has something to do with like how kind of sacred and important, like I said before, like reproduction was like in the past, because like if they have sex with someone else and then like, you know, like someone gets pregnant, I mean, obviously this can stem before like, you know, birth control or anything like that was like really like came about. I could definitely see, you know, the fear of like that adding so much responsibility outside of like your one-on-one relationship.
Yeah, but remember what I said about hunter gatherers?
Yeah, I think that's completely separate though.
Separate from what?
Like like hunter gatherers is like, I mean, that's far back.
Like you mean separate from like 1600?
Well, yeah.
But is that what you're talking about? Is what I'm asking. Like what time frame are you referencing?
I'm saying like over time, as we, you know, like people progress. Because I would probably, before I even like make a statement on this, I'd want to do more research as far as like where monogamy like really fully stems from and stuff like that. Because there's animals that are monogamous and there's animals that aren't.
Very few are.
Yeah, very few.
Very few. Penguins being one of them.
Yeah, there's penguins. There's a couple of them. I think hyenas are randomly.
Okay. I'm not sitting here saying like I'm definitely not like against monogamy, right?
Yeah, I just don't have enough information to give some sort of even query on like, well, this might be where it's from, or like I have no idea. I haven't done the research to know where monogamy come from. I do know that.
I mean, I don't either. I just know that back in hunter-gatherer times, they like oftentimes didn't know whose children were who, and they just raised them as a community.
Yeah,
you know, because like that's like what you had to do.
Well, they also had to like band together. Like, what better way to build connections?
Survival in numbers. You're building the community, right? So it's like it makes sense. It makes total sense.
Yeah. But in a modern day world where you need jobs and stuff like that to provide for a child, and it's no longer like you're literally going out and like getting food.
Well, also we don't even need to reproduce to survive as a species.
No,
like
anymore.
No. You know, like that isn't something that we technically need to do anymore.
No, we literally, the only reason that it's still going on right now is because cream is the #1 most searched, and that's it. That's why babies are born.
Okay, shall we move on to the next one?
No, I want to talk more about cream.
There are many types of non-monogamy. So polyamory is specifically the practice of multiple romantic relationships, but there are many non-monogamous relationships that involve, you know, one kind of primary romantic relationship and then kind of multiple secondary kind of casual or purely sexual relationships. There are lots of different ways that people can practice this, and I think it exists on a spectrum. In fact, I would also argue that monogamy is on a spectrum. I think a lot of monogamous people have different boundaries when it comes to engaging with other people. Some people, you know, they're comfortable with their partners flirting as long as they don't kind of act physically on their desires. Some people are uncomfortable with their partners meeting other people alone. Some people kind of don't want emotional intimacy. Some people don't want their partners watching porn. So I think that instead of a binary thing like monogamy or non-monogamy or monogamy and polyamory, it actually is a wider kind of spectrum of kind of personal boundaries and standards of what you would feel comfortable with in a relationship.
I'm not going to debate that. I think it's interesting that she said that.
Yeah, I think everything's like a spectrum, and everyone has their own bounds. I think a lot of the more I think about it, I think a lot of the insecurities that people have, like in relationships, as far as like not like people who might actually want to be in a polyamorous relationship or might actually want to be in a non-monogamous relationship. I think that the struggle, just the idea of like that their partner wants to have sex with other people, but like I don't care how committed you and your partner. Chances are your boyfriend or girlfriend wants to have with other people. And I think a lot of people have trouble accepting that.
I think so too, because that's a very normal thing.
Yeah, and it's like whether it's guys or like I assure you, the only person that your partner does not like you're not the only person your partner do. It's pretty likely that they're not. Yeah. I think that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Right. Commitment is not the same as monogamy.
Commitment, the idea of commitment and love, to me, isn't the promise not to have sex with or not to fall in love with anyone else. Although I accept that for other people, it can involve that. But I think a lot of people rely on the structure of a relationship to prove commitment instead of actually doing the meaningful work with them to, emotionally to be attuned to their partner. So commitment to me is trusting and communicating with someone consistently, making promises and following through on them. It's caring about someone's well-being. It's being invested in their joy and happiness, showing up for them in times of need, celebrating their achievements, a lot of these things. And none of that actually requires monogamy.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
And that's how like a actual like well-functioning non-monogamous relationship, polyamorous
or
monogamous,
any relationship would work. Yeah, like if you're actually putting in the work to actually commit to your partner as a person and what their needs are, and like if they need help with something, and to just like help them get through some shit, or like you make a commitment to do like we're gonna fucking have a garden day, like like that kind of stuff. And I think the word commitment is kind of thrown around pretty loosely in that sense, like with like, oh no, we're committed. We're in a committed relationship because like we're deciding not to sleep with other people, and then it kind of chalks it up to like, or you just forget about like like all right, yeah, we're committed. Like you don't, and then you stop thinking about all the other work that actually goes into it. 6 common misconceptions about non-monogamy.
I think a lot of people say things like, oh, this is the same as cheating, when obviously it's not, because this is something that I've actively kind of discussed and agreed on with my partner, and we have both kind of enthusiastically kind of entered into this. A lot of people bring up concerns about STIs, and in response to that, there was actually a study in 2015 that showed that there was no difference in STD infection rates between monogamous and non-monogamous people, which might be surprising, but the reason is because non-monogamous people are much more responsible and honest about kind of getting tested regularly, being open and honest with their partners, and having conversations about kind of the sex they're having. Whereas in monogamous relationships, that doesn't happen, and it was also shown that in the instances when monogamous people cheated, they were actually less likely to have safe sex. And a lot of people have said things like, me having commitment issues, but like I said, commitment to me doesn't mean monogamy. That I haven't experienced real love, or like the idea that if I'm in love with someone, I'll never look at anyone else, when the evidence demonstrates that's just simply not true. Or that my relationship won't last. But then obviously divorce rates show that monogamous relationships don't last either. So I think it's all about personal choice. I think that while monogamy is obviously a very valid relationship style, it is not the default. It should not be the default. And I think that other people should start recognizing that.
Okay, so I do want to say that it is pretty funny when people point out about how non-monogamy, they're like, oh, like that doesn't work. That's never been proven to work. And then you look at monogamous relationships and divorce rates, and you're like, yeah, neither does that. Like, and especially when it's like people like your parents like telling you this, who are also like 3 times divorced. I'm like, all right, well, definitely not gonna take advice from you, but I love you guys, but Thanks, no thanks. What was the other one? Oh, the STD one I think is super important too, because if you're really gonna make a decision to be non-monogamous, you're gonna like be ethical about it, right? Because you're like, okay, well, how do I do something like this? Right? At least I would think most people would, right?
Yeah, but when you cheat, it's a real Hail Mary, so it's way more common to be reckless about it. You're like, I'm already saying fuck it, so fuck it.
Yeah, and then like, especially to people that are cheating, they're probably getting like, there's a lot of getting off on the thrill associated with that too. So it's like
that raw, passionate
yeah,
007 sex. Like, I just met you, but I like martinis and stuff.
Just fucking roll the dice. Yeah. So I think, you know, the honesty and regular testing and being health conscious about it is like, you know, that sounds pretty accurate.
You're gonna get an STD if you're in a monogamous relationship. You're gonna get an STD.
Yeah,
that is just a fact of life.
Yeah,
one partner, all the STDs.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of the pros of an open relationship, I think that even if kind of jealousy was an issue for me, the benefits of a non-monogamous and honest relationship far outweigh those cons. You know, I think that non-monogamy has taught me so many new things. I've been able to explore things with other people and be able to kind of bring them back to my partner and enrich our relationship in turn. I think also seeing my partner with other people makes me happy. I think that I really invested in my partner's happiness and well-being, and because I know that I may not be able to fulfill all of their emotional needs, you know, I'm happy that they are getting what they want and desire from someone else. So yeah, I think that there are pros and cons to both kind of monogamous and non-monogamous relationships, and it's just about kind of, you know, what's more important to you and what trade-offs you're willing to make. Leanne, thank you so much for joining me.
I don't think she has any. I would imagine the cons are everything like you said, like complications and overwhelming. Like it can be overwhelming and it can be complicated, right?
Yeah, so it's about anything bigger, it's going to be harder, and I think having more than one partner, I think, makes the relationship bigger.
Yeah, you know, it's about what's important to you and trading off. I think like trading off, like, because you're gonna have pros and cons to any relationship, right?
Well, what is really interesting about what she said about, you know, if someone can be there for my partner, like I want them to be. I think everyone feels that way, but the second that sex gets involved, it all of a sudden becomes like a big thing. Like, oh, I would love it if, you know, my partner was going through a hard time and I couldn't like articulate how I feel about that or like make things better. But if she went to her mom and that helped, like you wouldn't have any problem with it. But if she goes to, let's say, a person who is attractive that you think she might be attracted to, all of a sudden it's like this big issue.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's like.
Like, I don't like how close you are with this person, but like if it was a family member,
that's what I mean. Like, why are we drawing? Like, oh, we're drawing lines around there, and that is insecurity. Yep.
But that's a real worry because you don't want to lose your partner to someone else.
100%. But like, if you're fucking truly non-monogamous, then like you're not gonna lose your partner to someone else. They're just sharing with different people and getting different emotional support from someone else that, like, you know, that either you can't provide or that I would imagine that it's just that you can't provide it either in the time and place for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
Which I think personally is fine.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that if there's something that you can't provide, it is completely fine for them to find it somewhere else, long as there's nothing about it.
Yeah, that is, you know, super like what?
I mean, the reason I couldn't do it has nothing to do with insecurity. I just know that every other other partner that she could find is going to be better than me. So any sleeping with anyone else, and that's it, I'm out. So I have to keep her down here, just me. I don't even let her do anything.
All right, we're not using any of that.
We're using all that.
Let me know your guys' thoughts. Leave a comment. Like I said, open to new information and, you know, discussing this shit.
If you like content like this,
subscribe to Dan.
Come to my channel if you like content, like, because I touch on all kinds of stuff.
Dan makes skateboarding content, so go ahead and watch his content if you skateboard. Also, I make skateboarding content on my main channel if you don't know, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but yeah, you can go to both of those channels. Okay.
In that order.
Bye.